Get that dirty kid out of here! Mr. Blackwood's finger stabbed toward 12-year-old Amara Thompson like a weapon. His designer suit gleamed under the lobby's crystal chandeliers as he turned his back to her, dismissing her existence entirely. Amara sat frozen on the marble bench, Arabic workbook clutched in her small hands. "This is Sterling International Bank, not a homeless shelter," Blackwood sneered at his associate, his voice dripping with disgust. "What's next? Are we going to let street children sleep in the vault?" The lobby's other clients nodded in agreement. Security guards shifted uncomfortably but did nothing. Amara's dark eyes absorbed every cruel word, every dismissive gesture. They saw a poor black child who didn't belong. They had no idea what those young ears had just overheard. Have you ever been invisible in plain sight, only to discover that being overlooked might be your greatest advantage? Amara's hands tightened around her workbook as Blackwood's voice faded into the lobby's hum. But another conversation caught her attention. Two men in expensive suits speaking in rapid Arabic near the elevators. Her heart stopped. They weren't discussing weather or business pleasantries. These men were talking about Wathaiq Muzawara, forged documents, about routing money through Dubai to Tajanub al-Raqaba to avoid regulatory detection. The words hit her like ice water. Al-Rashid. Infrastructure deal. $250 million. Amara knew that name. The entire bank had been buzzing about the Al-Rashid meeting happening on the 40th floor today. The biggest deal in Sterling's history. But these men were discussing something else entirely. Something dark. Something that would steal that money using fake construction permits and cryptocurrency networks. Her young mind raced, connecting fragments of overheard conversations. The cleaning staff always gossiped about the big meetings. Her mother, Rosa, had mentioned executives working late all week for this deal. A bead of sweat formed on her forehead despite the lobby's cool air. She glanced around. Adults in tailored suits rushed past her bench, checking phones, discussing stock prices. None of them spoke Arabic. None of them had heard what she heard. The two men moved toward the elevator bank, their conversation shifting to Mandarin. Amara's breath caught again as she caught familiar terms. Shell companies, transfer protocols, digital signatures. This wasn't just fraud. This was an international operation. Her small hands trembled as she closed her workbook. Every instinct screamed that she should tell someone. But who would believe her? She was just that dirty kid they wanted removed from the lobby. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. The men stepped inside, still talking in hushed Arabic about timeline deadlines and final transfers. Amara watched the numbers climb. 38, 39, 40. The Al-Rashid meeting floor. She stood up on shaking legs, her backpack sliding to the marble floor with a soft thud. The sound seemed to echo in her ears like a gunshot. "Excuse me," she whispered to herself, practicing the words, then louder, walking toward the security desk with determined steps. "Excuse me, sir. I think some people are planning to steal money from the bank. A lot of money." Security guard Marcus barely glanced up from his computer screen. His name tag gleamed under the harsh lobby lights as he continued typing, dismissing Amara with a wave of his hand. "Sweetie, adults are handling important business upstairs. Maybe find somewhere else to do your homework, okay?" Amara's stomach twisted. The same dismissal, the same assumption that children couldn't possibly understand grown-up problems. "But sir, I heard them talking about—" "Listen, kid." Marcus finally looked at her, his expression mixing irritation with forced patience. "Banking is complicated stuff. Leave it to the professionals who actually know what they're doing." Heat flushed through Amara's cheeks. She could walk away now, accept her place as invisible furniture in this marble palace. Instead, she took a deep breath and switched languages. "Samituhum yatahadathun an Wathaiq Muzawara wa Tawil al-Amwal Abra Dubai li Tajanub al-Raqaba al-Mali." The Arabic flowed from her lips like water. Marcus's fingers froze above his keyboard, his head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. "I heard them discussing forged transfer authorizations and cryptocurrency laundering routes," Amara continued in perfect English, her young voice steady now. "They mentioned shell company documentation and bypass protocols." A passing banker dropped her coffee cup. The porcelain shattered against marble, dark liquid spreading like spilled blood. Conversations around the lobby began to halt, heads turned, adult eyes fixed on this small figure who had just demonstrated impossible knowledge. Amara switched to Mandarin, her pronunciation crisp and clear. They also coordinated with Chinese associates about digital signature forgery and international routing systems. Marcus pushed back from his desk, his chair wheels squeaking against the floor. "What? How do you—" "I speak 3 languages fluently," Amara said simply. "And I understand financial terminology because I listen, really listen." The lobby's atmosphere shifted like air pressure before a storm. Whispered conversations stopped mid-sentence. Designer heels clicked faster across marble as people slowed to stare. Marcus reached for his phone with trembling fingers. "I need to call upstairs. This is unprecedented," finished a crisp voice behind them. They turned to see a tall woman in an elegant navy suit approaching. Her silver hair caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Authority radiated from every step. "Patricia called down about a disturbance," the woman said, her sharp eyes studying Amara with growing intensity. "Something about a child making wild claims." Marcus stumbled over his words. "Miss Sterling, this girl, she just spoke perfect Arabic and Mandarin. She knows about financial crimes. Complex stuff." Victoria Sterling's eyebrows rose slightly. She knelt to Amara's eye level, her voice gentle but probing. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Amara Thompson. My mom cleans offices here after hours." Recognition flickered across Victoria's face. "Rosa's daughter." "Yes, ma'am." Victoria studied the young face before her. Intelligent, dark eyes that held no fear, only determination. "Tell me exactly what you heard, Amara. Every detail." Amara straightened her shoulders. 2 men discussed forging construction permits for something called Operation Sandcastle. They plan to use cryptocurrency tumbling to launder money from the Al-Rashid infrastructure deal. The color drained from Victoria's face. They mentioned routing through Dubai and using shell companies to avoid regulatory detection. The Chinese contact confirmed digital signature protocols for tomorrow's transfer. Victoria stood slowly, her mind racing. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. "David, I need you in the lobby immediately. Bring the compliance team." Her voice carried new urgency. "And pull all audio recordings from conference room A for the past hour." She ended the call and looked down at Amara with something approaching awe. "Amara, I need you to understand something very important. The Al-Rashid deal is happening upstairs right now. If what you heard is accurate, they're about to steal $250 million. Amara finished quietly. Victoria's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen, her expression hardening. "The meeting is for final contract review. We have maybe 20 minutes before they execute transfer protocols." She knelt again, placing her hands gently on Amara's shoulders. "Are you absolutely certain about what you heard?" Amara nodded without hesitation. Victoria Sterling made a decision that would change everything. Then we stopped them. 3 years earlier, 8-year-old Amara had discovered the Queen's Public Library's computer lab during one of her mother's double shifts. While other kids watched cartoons, she found herself mesmerized by Al Jazeera's Arabic broadcasts. The musical flow of the language captivated her. She began with simple phrases, rewinding the same news segments dozens of times until the sounds made sense. Rosa would return home exhausted at midnight, industrial cleaner still stinging her cracked hands, to find Amara hunched over homework at their tiny kitchen table. Textbooks spread beside her laptop, a refurbished machine Rosa had saved months to buy. "Mija, you should be sleeping," Rosa would whisper, but her eyes always held pride watching her daughter's dedication. "Just 5 more minutes, Mama. I'm learning about the world." While classmates played video games, Amara absorbed BBC World Service, CCTV International, and Middle Eastern business channels. Not just learning words, but understanding entire cultures, economies, political systems. Her motivation was pure and heartbreaking. "I want to understand the important conversations you clean around but can never join." Their apartment told the story of a quiet struggle, generic cereal in unmarked boxes, Rosa's cleaning uniforms hanging over radiators to dry, secondhand school supplies arranged precisely on Amara's desk like precious artifacts. But education bloomed in every corner. Language flashcards taped to bathroom mirrors, international news playing softly during dinner, Rosa's work badge sitting on the kitchen counter, a daily reminder of her words, "Education is the key to every door, Mija." Amara had memorized financial terminology not from textbooks, but from cleaning office buildings with her mother during school breaks. She'd sit quietly in corporate hallways, absorbing fragments of conversations about mergers, acquisitions, international transfers. The most important conversations happen in corners and hallways, not fancy conference rooms, Rosa always said. Now standing in Sterling's marble lobby, those words echoed in Amara's mind. She thought of her mother's sacrifices, her belief that knowledge could transform their lives. This moment, this choice to speak up, wasn't just about stopping criminals. It was about proving that wisdom could emerge from the most unexpected places, that a cleaning lady's daughter might hold the key to protecting a bank's fortune, the key Rosa had always promised education would provide. Victoria Sterling's heels clicked against marble as she approached, her silver hair catching afternoon light streaming through the lobby's tall windows. Authority radiated from every measured step. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. This woman commanded respect from every adult in the building. She decided the fate of billion-dollar deals with a single word. "Miss Sterling," Marcus stammered, rising from his chair. "I apologize for the interruption, but this child claims—" "I heard." Victoria's sharp blue eyes studied Amara with laser focus. "Amara Thompson, Rosa's daughter." Recognition flickered in Amara's chest. This powerful woman knew her mother's name. Victoria knelt gracefully, bringing herself to eye level with the 12-year-old. Her voice softened but maintained its edge of authority. "Tell me exactly what you heard, every single word." Amara straightened her shoulders, forcing confidence into her young voice. "Two men spoke in Arabic about Amaliyat Qasr al-Ramal, Operation Sandcastle. They discussed forging construction permits and using cryptocurrency networks." Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. She responded in rapid Arabic, testing Amara's comprehension with complex financial terminology. Amara answered fluently, adding cultural context about Middle Eastern business practices and regulatory environments. Her pronunciation was flawless, her understanding sophisticated. The lobby's background noise seemed to fade. Other conversations stopped as adults turned to witness this impossible exchange. Victoria switched to Mandarin, probing deeper. Amara responded seamlessly, explaining the coordination protocols she'd overheard regarding digital signature forgery. "Remarkable," Victoria whispered, more to herself than anyone else. She stood, pulling out her phone with decisive movements. "David, I need you in the lobby with the compliance team, now." Her fingers flew across the screen as she typed urgent messages. "Pull all audio recordings from conference room A, cross-reference with our regulatory monitoring systems." Marcus shifted nervously beside his desk. "Ma'am, should we really halt operations based on intelligence from someone who speaks 3 languages fluently and understands international financial crime better than half our compliance department?" Victoria's tone could cut glass. Computer terminals around the lobby began lighting up as staff received urgent notifications. Junior executives hurried past, carrying tablets and printouts. The elevator dinged. Security Chief David Brooks emerged with 2 compliance officers, their expressions mixing confusion and urgency. "Victoria, what's the emergency? The Al-Rashid team is literally reviewing final contracts upstairs." Victoria gestured toward Amara. "Our young consultant here has identified what appears to be an active financial crime operation targeting today's deal." David's eyes widened as they fixed on the small figure beside Victoria's imposing frame. "A child?" "A linguist," Victoria corrected sharply. "Amara, please repeat what you told me." Amara took a deep breath, switching between Arabic, Mandarin, and English as she detailed the overheard conversations. She explained routing mechanisms, shell company structures, and timeline coordination with technical precision. David's expression transformed from skepticism to alarm. He pulled out his tablet, fingers dancing across the screen. "The timeline matches. We do have 2 unscheduled visitors who arrived an hour ago. Security logged them as Al-Rashid associates." Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face hardening. "Facial recognition shows discrepancies in their identification documents. The photos don't match any known Al-Rashid employees." The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. David was already reaching for his radio. "We need the FBI Financial Crimes Unit, potential fraud in progress, executive level." Victoria looked down at Amara with something approaching awe. You may have just saved this bank from the largest theft in our history, but Amara's young face remained serious. They mentioned final transfers happen in 18 minutes. We need to hurry. The lobby's tension thickened as elevator doors opened with urgent chimes. 3 senior executives emerged, their faces tight with irritation and confusion. Regional Director James Morrison led the group, his expensive Armani suit immaculate despite his obvious frustration. Behind him, legal counsel Patricia Kim clutched a tablet while risk assessment head David Brooks checked his watch impatiently. "Victoria, what the hell is going on?" Morrison's voice boomed across the marble space. "We just pulled the entire compliance team from a $250 million closing to investigate what exactly." His eyes swept the scene, landing on Amara with barely concealed disgust. "Please don't tell me we're disrupting the biggest deal in Sterling's history because the cleaning lady's kid thinks she heard something." Amara felt heat flush through her cheeks. The same dismissal, the same assumption that her age and background automatically disqualified her intelligence. Victoria stepped protectively closer to Amara. "James, this child has identified sophisticated international financial crime terminology in 3 different languages. She's provided actionable intelligence that..." "Intelligence?" Morrison's laugh was sharp and cruel. "She's 12 years old, Victoria. 12. We're going to halt a deal worth more than most countries' GDP based on what a 6th grader thinks she overheard." Patricia Kim nodded in agreement, her voice dripping with condescension. "Victoria, I understand your progressive instincts, but we have fiduciary responsibilities to our shareholders. We can't just..." "What exactly can't we do?" Amara's voice cut through their protests like a blade. The executives turned, surprised by the interruption. Children weren't supposed to speak in adult conversations. Amara switched to perfect Arabic, her young voice carrying surprising authority. "I heard them discussing Tahwil al-Amwal bi Turuq Gayer Sharia through Lebanese banking networks and cryptocurrency tumbling operations." Morrison's face darkened. "Anyone can memorize foreign phrases," Amara continued in Mandarin, explaining the technical aspects of the shell company coordination she'd overheard. Then switched to Farsi, detailing money laundering protocols that would make traditional detection impossible. The executives fell silent. David Brooks, despite his initial skepticism, pulled out his tablet. "The terminology she's using, these are highly specialized financial crime methods. How does a child know about Hawala networks?" "Because poverty teaches you to listen carefully," Amara said quietly, switching back to English. "When your mother cleans offices, you learn that information is the only currency that multiplies when you share it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Morrison checked his Rolex with growing agitation. "This is ridiculous. We have 14 minutes before contract execution. Every second we waste here costs us credibility with international partners." Patricia Kim nodded vigorously. "The Al-Rashid delegation is waiting upstairs. They've already expressed concern about delays." "Because they're not the real Al-Rashid delegation," Amara said, her voice steady despite the adults towering over her. "The Chinese contact confirmed identity documentation would be provided tomorrow. Why would legitimate businessmen need to forge their own identities?" Victoria's phone buzzed with an incoming alert. She glanced at the screen, her expression hardening. "FBI facial recognition confirms it. The men upstairs aren't in any Al-Rashid employee database." Morrison's confidence wavered for the first time. That could be a simple administrative oversight. "Or," Amara said, meeting his eyes directly, "it could be exactly what I told you it was 20 minutes ago." David Brooks was already coordinating with security. Phone calls escalated around the lobby as the scope of the potential crime became clear. Morrison stood frozen, watching his certainty crumble in the face of a 12-year-old's unshakable logic. 11 minutes until transfer, Amara said quietly. "Make your choice." Victoria Sterling's jaw set with iron determination. "We act on Amara's intelligence immediately." She turned to David Brooks, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Coordinate with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. Full emergency protocol." The lobby exploded into controlled chaos. Phones rang continuously as staff mobilized around a 12-year-old girl who had just become the most important person in the building. Amara found herself at the center of a hurricane of activity. FBI agent Rodriguez arrived within minutes, setting up a mobile command station on the marble floor. Laptops opened. Secure communications crackled to life. "We need real-time translation support," Rodriguez said, gesturing to Amara toward the equipment. "Can you handle intercepted communications?" Amara nodded, slipping on oversized headphones. Adult voices speaking Arabic filled her ears, the same criminals she'd overheard earlier, now coordinating final details of their operation. "They're confirming shell company routing through 3 different countries," she translated rapidly. "Dubai, Singapore, and the Cayman Islands. The cryptocurrency tumbling will happen in 17-minute intervals to avoid detection algorithms." Agent Rodriguez's fingers flew across his keyboard, documenting every word. "What else?" Amara's young face concentrated intensely as she processed the overlapping conversations. "They've confirmed that the real Al-Rashid executives are—" "Oh, no." Her voice caught with genuine fear. "They're being held at a warehouse in Brooklyn. The criminals say Al-Rusul lan ya'udu. The messengers won't return." The implication hit the room like a physical blow. This wasn't just financial fraud, it was kidnapping, possibly worse. Victoria knelt beside Amara's chair, her voice gentle but urgent. "You're doing incredibly important work, sweetheart. What else can you hear?" Amara adjusted the headphones, her small hand surprisingly steady on the equipment controls. Chinese voices filled the audio feed. "Beijing contact confirms digital signature protocols are ready," she translated. "They're using quantum encryption to bypass Sterling's security systems. The transfer will appear completely legitimate until it's too late to reverse." FBI technicians surrounded her station, documenting every translation. Complex financial charts appeared on multiple screens as they traced the criminal network's structure. "The scope is massive," Agent Rodriguez muttered. "This operation spans 4 continents." Amara continued translating, switching seamlessly between languages as the criminals coordinated their final moves. Her linguistic skills revealed layers of the conspiracy that electronic monitoring had completely missed. "They're mentioning Project Sandcastle includes 12 other banks," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "Sterling isn't the only target. This is just the beginning." Victoria's phone buzzed with urgent updates. "Security confirms the fake Al-Rashid team is requesting immediate transfer authorization. They're claiming timeline pressure from Middle Eastern markets." Agent Rodriguez checked his watch. 8 minutes until they execute the transfer. If this money leaves Sterling's system, recovering it becomes nearly impossible." Amara pulled off the headphones, her young face determined. "They just switched to Farsi. The coordinator said, Zamane Akir, final time. Everything depends on the next few minutes." The command station buzzed with controlled urgency. FBI agents coordinated with international partners while Sterling's security prepared for the confrontation upstairs. Victoria placed her hand gently on Amara's shoulder. "You've given us everything we need to stop them." But Amara shook her head, pointing to the audio equipment. "They're still talking, still coordinating. If we miss anything—" Agent Rodriguez made a decision. "She comes with us. We need her translations in real time." Victoria hesitated. "She's just a child." "She's the most valuable intelligence asset we have," Rodriguez replied. "Without her, we're operating blind." Amara stood up, her backpack still slung over her shoulders. "I want to help save the real Al-Rashid executives." The elevator doors opened, revealing their destination and the confrontation that would test everything. Victoria Sterling stood before the assembled crisis team, her silver hair catching the lobby's fluorescent lights. FBI agents, bank executives, and security personnel formed a circle around the makeshift command station. At the center sat 12-year-old Amara Thompson, headphones still around her neck, looking impossibly small, yet undeniably essential. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria began, her voice carrying the authority of 3 decades in international banking. "In 35 minutes, Amara has provided more actionable intelligence than our entire compliance department gathered in 6 months of preparation." Morrison shifted uncomfortably, his earlier skepticism now looking foolish under the weight of mounting evidence. Victoria continued, her gaze sweeping the assembled team. She identified a multi-continental criminal operation using linguistic skills that exceed our international department's capabilities. She's prevented what could have been the largest financial theft in banking history. Agent Rodriguez nodded approvingly. The intelligence she's provided has allowed us to coordinate with Interpol, FBI International, and Middle Eastern law enforcement simultaneously. Without her translations, we'd be operating completely blind. Victoria reached into her blazer pocket, withdrawing a temporary security badge she'd had printed during the investigation. The plastic card read, Amara Thompson, Language Intelligence Specialist. She knelt beside Amara's chair, clipping the badge to her young consultant's backpack with a ceremony that felt like knighthood. Every expert needs proper credentials, Victoria said softly, echoing words that would become part of Sterling's company culture. Amara touched the badge gently, remembering her mother's words about education being the key to every door. This plastic rectangle represented something far more valuable, recognition that intelligence could emerge from anywhere. The FBI has requested Amara serve as lead translator for the arrest operation, Victoria announced to the group. Her real-time language support will be crucial for coordinating with international partners and ensuring we capture the entire network. Morrison, his pride finally broken, stepped forward. Amara, I owe you an apology. My assumptions about your capabilities were not only wrong, they were dangerous. He turned to address the room. This young woman has reminded us that talent exists everywhere if we're wise enough to listen. David Brooks was already updating security protocols on his tablet. We're implementing new procedures for intelligence gathering. Linguistic diversity will become a priority in our hiring practices. Agent Rodriguez checked his watch. 4 minutes until transfer execution. The fake Al-Rashid team is expecting final authorization signatures. Victoria stood, placing her hand protectively on Amara's shoulder. You're not just solving a crime, sweetheart. You're proving that wisdom comes in every age and every background. Amara looked up at this powerful woman who had chosen to believe in her when everyone else saw only a child. My mom always said the most important conversations happen in corners and hallways, not conference rooms. Your mother is a very wise woman, Victoria replied, and she raised an extraordinary daughter. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. The arrest team prepared to move, but Amara remained calm, focused on the mission ahead. Agent Rodriguez gestured toward the elevator. Ready to stop a $250 million international crime? Amara adjusted her new badge one final time, her young voice steady with purpose. Ready. The 40th floor conference room stretched before them like a stage set for deception. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan's glittering skyline, while mahogany tables gleamed under crystal chandeliers. 3 men in immaculate suits sat around polished wood, contracts spread like false promises between them. The fake Al-Rashid delegation had transformed Sterling's most prestigious meeting space into their criminal theater. FBI agent Rodriguez led the entry, followed by Victoria, Amara, and the tactical team. The criminals looked up from their papers, initial surprise quickly masked by professional composure. The lead imposter, tall, olive-skinned, expensive watch catching the light, smiled with practiced charm. Gentlemen, we weren't expecting additional parties to our private meeting. Agent Rodriguez showed his credentials. FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with the Al-Rashid representatives regarding some verification questions. Of course! The fake Al-Rashid replied smoothly, his English perfect and unaccented. Though I'm afraid we're on a rather tight timeline. International markets wait for no one. His associates nodded agreement, shuffling papers with calculated urgency. Everything about their performance screamed legitimacy, except for the growing panic in their eyes as they noticed 12-year-old Amara standing beside Victoria. The Arabic speaker from the lobby recognized her first. His face went pale as understanding crashed over him like ice water. He whispered frantically to his companions in rapid Arabic, assuming no law enforcement would understand. Amara stepped forward, her young voice clear and steady. He just told them that the small witness from downstairs is here and they need to execute emergency protocols immediately. The room frozen. Agent Rodriguez smiled grimly. Please continue your conversation, gentlemen. We're finding it very educational. The lead criminal's composure cracked slightly. I'm sorry, but we don't understand what the child is claiming to. Kullahu ana al-Qudsa tafshul, Amara said directly to the Arabic speaker, her pronunciation flawless. Tell him the plan will fail. The man's face was drained of all colors. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. She's speaking, he stammered to his associates. Perfect Arabic, Amara finished for him in English, along with Mandarin and Farsi. Would you like me to translate your conversation from this morning about cryptocurrency tumbling and shell company routing? Victoria stepped beside Amara, her presence both protective and authoritative. Agent Rodriguez, would you like Amara to translate their earlier phone conversations for the room? The FBI agent nodded, activating a recording device. Please proceed. Amara's voice took on the tone of someone far older than her 12 years. She recited the Arabic conversations verbatim, translating each criminal phrase with devastating precision. Operation Sandcastle involves routing stolen funds through Dubai shell companies, then using cryptocurrency tumbling protocols to launder money across 4 continents, she began, her memory photographic in its accuracy. The criminals exchanged desperate glances. The lead imposter attempted switching tactics, speaking rapid Chinese to his associate about deleting evidence and activating escape routes. Amara seamlessly translated that conversation too, revealing their backup plans in real time. He just instructed the Beijing contact to initiate data destruction protocols and prepare extraction routes through Montreal, she said calmly. Agent Rodriguez was already coordinating with international partners through his earpiece. Copy that. Montreal team, intercept the data center. Beijing unit, freeze the extraction accounts. The fake Al-Rashid leader's professional mask finally shattered completely. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he realized a 12-year-old had unraveled months of careful planning. You don't understand the complexity of international business, he said desperately to Victoria. These are legitimate investment protocols. Legitimate investors don't discuss holding hostages in Brooklyn warehouses, Amara interrupted, her young voice cutting through his lies like a sword. The room went dead silent. What? Victoria breathed. Amara looked directly at the criminals, her dark eyes blazing with righteous anger. During your phone calls, you confirmed that the real Al-Rashid executives are being held at a warehouse in Brooklyn. You said, Al-Rusul lan ya'udu, the messengers won't return. Agent Rodriguez was already barking coordinates into his radio. Emergency response to Brooklyn. Possible hostage situation. Move now. The criminals made their final desperate play. The Chinese associate lunged for his laptop, trying to execute emergency deletion protocols. The Farsi speaker began shouting instructions to accomplices outside the building, but Amara was translating everything in real time, her linguistic skills turning their multilingual coordination into exposed vulnerability. He's telling the Montreal team to activate the cryptocurrency dispersal in 60 seconds, she called out. The Beijing contact is starting database destruction now. FBI coordination exploded across multiple continents. Radio chatter filled the room as international law enforcement moved simultaneously. The lead criminal stood abruptly, his chair crashing backward. This is impossible. You're just a child. You can't. I can speak 3 languages fluently, understand international finance, and I've been listening to your criminal conspiracy for over an hour, Amara said, her voice steady as steel. What I can't understand is why adults like you think children like me are too stupid to matter. Agent Rodriguez was securing the laptop while his team handcuffed the accomplices. Phone calls poured in with updates. Montreal arrest successful. Beijing data seizure complete. Brooklyn warehouse raid in progress. Victoria knelt beside Amara, her voice filled with awe and profound respect. You just exposed an international criminal network spanning 4 continents. You've saved not just Sterling Bank, but the real Al-Rashid executives and countless other potential victims. The scope became staggering as reports continued flowing in. The network had targeted 12 major banks across North America and Europe. Hundreds of millions in potential theft, prevented by one 12-year-old's courage to speak up. As the criminals were led away in handcuffs, the lead imposter turned back to stare at Amara with something approaching respect mixed with disbelief. How? He asked simply. He asked. Amara adjusted her new security badge, her young voice carrying wisdom that would echo through Sterling's halls for years to come. You assumed I was invisible. That was your first mistake. Agent Rodriguez's radio crackled with the final update. Brooklyn warehouse secured. 3 hostages recovered alive and safe. Victoria placed her hand on Amara's shoulder as they watched Manhattan's skyline through the conference room windows. You didn't just solve a crime, sweetheart. You reminded us all that the most valuable insights often come from the newest eyes seeing old problems. But their greatest transformation was yet to come. 6 weeks later, the same marble lobby that had once dismissed Amara Thompson as unwanted furniture now buzzed with anticipation. News cameras lined the polished floors while financial reporters adjusted their equipment, preparing to document a transformation that would reshape banking forever. Amara walked through Sterling International's entrance, wearing a custom-tailored navy blazer, her new security badge gleaming against the fabric. Senior Language Intelligence Specialist. Her worn sneakers had been replaced by professional flats that finally allowed her to walk with confidence across marble that was no longer intimidated. The girl who had once sat invisible on a corner bench now commanded attention from every corner of the financial world. Rosa Thompson stood in the audience wearing her finest dress, a simple black outfit she'd saved for special occasions. Tears of pride streamed down her face as she watched her daughter address a room full of executives who had once treated her as invisible furniture. Victoria Sterling approached the podium, her silver hair catching the lights from dozens of cameras. The woman who had chosen to listen when others dismissed had become the architect of revolutionary change. 6 weeks ago, traditional talent identification protocols nearly cost Sterling Bank $250 million, Victoria began, her voice carrying to every corner of the lobby. More importantly, they nearly allowed international criminals to operate freely while innocent people remained in danger. She gestured toward Amara, who stood beside the podium with quiet dignity that belied her 12 years. Today, we announce the most significant change in banking intelligence gathering since digital encryption. The Sterling Young Minds Initiative will partner with public schools across the nation to identify multilingual students from working-class families. Applause erupted through the lobby, but Victoria raised her hand for silence. This program exists because one young woman had the courage to speak when adults refused to listen. Amara Thompson didn't just prevent a crime. She proved that genius recognizes no social boundaries. FBI Director Jennifer Walsh stepped forward, carrying an official commendation. The FBI is proud to recognize Amara Thompson for her extraordinary contribution to international crime prevention. Her linguistic intelligence led to arrests on 3 continents and prevented crimes totaling over $800 million. The scope of Amara's impact continued to expand as more officials took the podium. Department of Education representatives announced new gifted identification programs. 5 universities offered full scholarships with early admission pathways. But the most meaningful moment came when Victoria presented Amara with a custom nameplate crafted from Sterling's finest materials. Amara Thompson, Senior Language Intelligence Specialist, Sterling's youngest protector. Amara stepped to the podium, her young hands steady on the microphone. The lobby fell completely silent as hundreds of adults waited to hear from the child who had changed everything. 2 months ago, you saw me as furniture in this lobby, she began, her voice carrying newfound confidence. Someone said I was a dirty kid who didn't belong here. Someone else called me a ghetto rat who should have been removed before clients saw me. Uncomfortable shifting rippled through the audience as adults remembered their own prejudices. Today, I'm proof that every kid who's been ignored, dismissed, or told they don't matter might be exactly who you need to listen to most. Her words hit the room like thunder. Rosa sobbed openly in the audience while Victoria wiped tears from her own eyes. My mom taught me that education is the key to every door, but you taught me something even more important. Courage is what actually turns the key. Amara held up 2 badges, her mother's old cleaning credentials and her new specialist identification. These represent the same thing: dignity through contribution, value through service, respect earned by making other people's lives better. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present, from invisible to indispensable in 6 weeks, but the journey had taken 12 years of preparation that nobody had noticed. Victoria returned to the podium as Amara stepped aside, but the change in power dynamics was unmistakable. The adult was now introducing the child who had become Sterling's most valuable asset. The Rosa and Amara Thompson Foundation will provide technology access and language learning resources for children in working-class families nationwide, Victoria announced. Because talent exists everywhere. We just need to create the conditions for it to flourish. Regional Director Morrison, his earlier skepticism now completely transformed, approached the microphone with visible humility. I owe this entire institution an apology for my initial response to Amara's intelligence. My prejudices nearly cost us everything. He turned to address Amara directly. You taught us that assumptions based on age, race, or economic background aren't just wrong, they're dangerous to our mission. The press conference continued with testimonials from FBI agents, international law enforcement, and banking regulators who had implemented new protocols based on Amara's success. But the most powerful moment came when a video call connected the lobby to a hospital room in Dubai, where the real Al Rashid executives were recovering from their kidnapping ordeal. Miss Thompson, the lead businessman said through the screen, his voice weak but sincere. You saved our lives. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Amara stepped closer to the camera, her young face serious with understanding of what those words meant. You don't owe me anything, sir. We all owe each other the responsibility to listen when someone needs help. As the press conference concluded, reporters surrounded Amara with questions about her future plans, her linguistic abilities, and her advice for other children facing discrimination. But the most telling moment came when a young boy in the audience, another child of service workers, raised his small hand to ask a question. Miss Amara, how do we make grown-ups listen to us? Amara knelt to his eye level, just as Victoria had done for her weeks earlier, the gesture of respect being passed to the next generation. You speak the truth, even when you're scared, she said simply. You remember that your voice matters even when people tell you it doesn't, and you never, ever let anyone convince you that being young means being wrong. The lobby erupted in applause that seemed to echo beyond the marble walls, carrying Amara's message to children everywhere who had been told they were too young, too poor, too different to matter. Victoria placed her hand on Amara's shoulder as the crowd began to disperse. Their mentor-student relationship now evolved into something approaching partnership. Ready for your next case? Victoria asked with a smile. Amara adjusted her nameplate one final time, looking out at the lobby where other children now sat comfortably doing homework, their presence welcomed rather than merely tolerated. There are a lot more voices out there that need to be heard, she said with the wisdom of someone far older than 12. Let's go find them. 1 year later, Amara Thompson's story had traveled far beyond Sterling International Bank's marble walls. The ripple effects of that afternoon when a 12-year-old refused to stay silent had transformed an entire industry. The Young Minds Initiative now operated in 73 financial institutions across North America and Europe. What began as one child's courage had become a movement recognizing that intelligence wears many faces, speaks many languages, and emerges from unexpected places. Amara, now 13, moved through Sterling's halls with quiet confidence that came from earned respect rather than demanded attention. Her small office buzzed with activity, multiple computer screens displaying international news feeds, translation software, and direct communication lines to FBI youth liaison programs. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Through her language intelligence work and the network of young consultants she had inspired, they had prevented an additional $800 million in financial crimes. Children from working-class backgrounds now served as junior specialists in over 150 institutions worldwide. But the most profound changes were human, not financial. Banks had stopped seeing custodial staff as invisible fixtures and started recognizing them as valuable sources of intelligence. Children were no longer automatically dismissed from adult spaces, but invited to share observations that fresh eyes might catch. The Rosa and Amara Thompson Foundation had provided technology access to over 5,000 children, creating pathways for talents that might otherwise remain hidden forever. Language learning programs flourished in underserved communities where corporations once saw only problems, they now discovered solutions. Amara completed her accelerated high school coursework while maintaining her consultant role, planning dual majors in international relations and computer science. Her mother, Rosa, had been promoted to facilities management supervisor, her decades of experience finally receiving the recognition it deserved. Victoria Sterling often reflected on how close they had come to disaster, not just financial, but moral. How easily they might have dismissed the most important voice in the room simply because it belonged to someone they weren't trained to hear. Amara's story isn't unique because of her exceptional abilities, Victoria explained to visiting executives from other institutions. It's unique because one adult finally chose to listen instead of dismiss. The banking industry had awakened to an uncomfortable truth. Talent existed everywhere, but institutional blindness prevented them from seeing it. Children, immigrants, service workers, and others deemed unqualified often possessed insights that credentialed experts missed entirely. International banking regulators now required institutions to implement age-diverse intelligence gathering protocols. The phrase "fresh eyes on old problems" had become corporate policy rather than empty rhetoric. But Amara's greatest pride came from the letters. Hundreds each month from children around the world who had found their voices because she had shown them voices mattered. A 10-year-old in Singapore had identified cybersecurity vulnerabilities that adult IT departments missed. Twin sisters in Detroit, daughters of janitors, had revolutionized customer service protocols by actually listening to complaints rather than deflecting them. Each story reinforced the lesson Amara had learned in Sterling's lobby. The most valuable insights often come from people others consider least important. Standing in that same lobby where her journey began, Amara often watched new children arrive with their working parents. Now they studied comfortably at designated spaces, their presence welcomed rather than merely tolerated. Rosa's words echoed through the marble halls like prophecy fulfilled. Education is the key to every door, Mija. But Amara had added her own wisdom. Courage is what actually turns the key. The transformation extended beyond banking into schools, hospitals, and corporations that had learned Sterling's lesson. Listen to the voices you've been trained to ignore. Notice the people you've been conditioned to overlook. Recognize that intelligence has no uniform, no age requirement, no social prerequisites. Today, when adults in positions of power face complex problems, many ask themselves a simple question. What might the children, the custodians, the invisible people in our organization see that we're missing? That question, born from one 12-year-old's courage to speak truth to power, had become the foundation of institutional wisdom. Amara kept her mother's old cleaning badge in her office, a daily reminder that respect and intelligence aren't determined by job titles or age. Beside it sat her current credentials, proof that when institutions choose to listen, extraordinary things become possible. The most valuable insight often comes from the newest eyes seeing old problems. The most important conversations happen in corners and hallways, not conference rooms. And sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Subscribe if you believe every voice matters, regardless of age. Share this story with a young person who needs to know their thoughts have power. Because somewhere today another brilliant child is sitting quietly, observing carefully, ready to change the world if someone just chooses to listen.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.